A man is lying on a raft in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. He has been there for weeks. The sun has burnt him raw. Sharks knock against the bottom of the raft at night, and he has watched one of his companions die. He is starving, and he is 1,000 miles from any land. And this open ocean that is slowly killing him will turn out to be the kindest thing that happens to him for the next 2 years. Because when rescue finally comes, it comes wearing an enemy uniform. And what waits for him on land is worse than the sea. So what does a president who kept losing, a painter nobody would buy, and the most famous scientist of his age all have in common with that man on the raft? Every one of them was written off, declared finished. Abraham Lincoln lost election after election and sank so low his friends hid the knives from him. Vincent van Gogh sold almost nothing in his life and died certain he was a failure. Soichiro watched his factory get bombed, and then an earthquake flattened what was left. Galileo was forced to his knees by the most powerful institution on earth, and then went blind. Nikola Tesla gave us the electricity in our walls and died alone and penniless, feeding pigeons. And Stephen Hawking was given 2 years to live at 21. Every one of them was handed a verdict: you're done, you failed, you won't recover. And every one of them refused to stay down. 7 people the world gave up on, who did not give up on themselves. Stay to the end. Number 7 is the man on the raft, whose real ordeal only began the day he was rescued. Before he was the most important president in American history, Abraham Lincoln was, by almost every visible measure, a failure. He was born dirt poor in a one-room cabin. His mother died when he was 9. He had, in total, barely a year of formal schooling. Everything else he taught himself by firelight, borrowing books and walking miles to return them. As a young man, he opened a store. It failed, and left him with a debt so large he called it, only half joking, the national debt. It took him years to pay back. He ran for the state legislature and lost. The woman he is said to have loved most, Anne Rutledge, died young. And somewhere in those years, he fell into a depression so black that his friends quietly took the knives and razors out of his room because they genuinely feared what he might do. He wrote, in that period, that he was the most miserable man living, and that if his feeling was spread across the whole human race, there would not be one cheerful face on earth. He did not win his way out. He lost more. He lost a Senate race. He lost a nomination for vice president. By most timelines, he should have been finished several times over. Then, in 1860, the man who kept losing was elected President of the United States and held a fracturing nation together through the bloodiest war it has ever fought and ended slavery in it. The lesson for you: a losing streak is not a verdict. Lincoln carried a lifelong sadness and a record full of defeats straight into the work he was born for. You are allowed to have failed many times and still be walking toward the thing that matters. The scoreboard in the middle of the game is not the final one. Vincent van Gogh failed at everything he tried before he picked up a brush. He failed as an art dealer. He failed as a teacher. He tried to become a preacher and was rejected. He gave away his possessions to the poor and lived so ascetically that the church decided he was an embarrassment and let him go. He did not start painting seriously until he was around 27. He had only about 10 years left to live. In that decade, he made roughly 900 paintings, some of the most beloved images ever created, and in his own lifetime, he sold almost none of them, perhaps a single canvas. He lived on money sent by his younger brother Theo, who believed in him when no one else did. He was tormented by mental illness. He famously cut off part of his own ear. He spent time in an asylum, and it was there, staring out a barred window before sunrise, that he painted a swirling night sky that now hangs in the imagination of the entire world. In 1890, at 37, he died of a gunshot wound, convinced that his life's work had amounted to nothing. He never knew. Today, he is considered one of the greatest painters who ever lived. The pictures nobody would buy now hang behind glass and velvet ropes, and people cross oceans to stand in front of them. The lesson for you: recognition and worth are not the same thing. Van Gogh's paintings were exactly as extraordinary. the day nobody wanted them as they are now. If you are doing real work and the world hasn't noticed, the work is not less real. Keep making it. The verdict of your own lifetime is not the final word on your value. Soichiro Honda was not a scholar. He was a mechanic grease under his fingernails, no patience for classrooms, obsessed with how engines worked. He spent years perfecting piston rings and proudly took them to a giant automaker to win a contract. They rejected them. His parts failed the quality standard. Humiliated, he went back and actually enrolled in school to fix the gaps in his knowledge, and was mocked for being an old student who wouldn't take the exams because he only wanted the learning, not the diploma. He got the technique right, eventually, and then the war came. American bombers hit his factory and destroyed it. And then, before he could recover, a massive earthquake struck and flattened what was left of his manufacturing plants. Everything he had physically built was rubble. He sold what was left of the salvage. And in the ruins of post-war Japan, with fuel scarce and everyone desperate for cheap transport, he strapped small engines onto bicycles so people could get around. That humble motorized bicycle became a motorcycle, and that company became Honda, one of the largest engine and vehicle makers in the world. He later said that success is 99% failure. He meant it literally. He had lived it. The lesson for you: Honda did not have a smooth road with one setback. He had rejection, then bombs, then an earthquake. His work destroyed again and again by forces he could not control. And each time, he simply started from whatever was left. When everything you built is rubble, you are not back at zero. You still have the one thing that built it the first time: you. Galileo Galilei pointed a telescope at the sky and saw things no human being had ever seen. Mountains on the moon, 4 moons circling Jupiter, the phases of Venus. What he saw told him plainly that the Earth was not the fixed center of everything. It moved, and that was not allowed. He was hauled before the Inquisition, threatened and forced, an old man, under the shadow of torture, to kneel and publicly deny the truth he had proven with his own eyes. Legend says that as he rose, he muttered under his breath, "And yet it moves." He was sentenced to spend the rest of his life under house arrest, watched, silenced, forbidden to teach the thing he knew to be real. And as if that were not enough, in his final years he went completely blind. The man who had given humanity new eyes on the universe lost his own. A condemned, blind old man, confined to his house, would have been forgiven for stopping. He did not stop. In those years of house arrest, he wrote his finest scientific work, a book on motion and the strength of materials that laid the groundwork for modern physics. Unable to publish it in his own country, he had the manuscript smuggled out and printed abroad. He died, still under arrest, but the science he refused to abandon outlived every judge who condemned him. And today, he is called the father of modern science. The lesson for you: they can make you kneel. They can take your freedom, your platform, even your sight. What they cannot reach is the work itself, if you keep doing it quietly in the room they've locked you in. Being silenced by power is not the same as being wrong, and it is certainly not the same as being finished. The alternating current that lights your home, charges your phone, and runs nearly everything you touch, that was, in large part, Nikola Tesla. He arrived in America with almost nothing and went to work for Thomas Edison, who is said to have promised him a large bonus for solving a hard engineering problem. Tesla solved it. The bonus never came. Edison, he said, told him he didn't understand American humor. Tesla quit and dug ditches for a while to survive. Then he built something better than anything Edison had, a system of alternating current that could send power across whole cities. He was right, and history proved him right. His system won, but being right did not make him rich. At one point, he tore up a royalty contract that would have made him one of the wealthiest men alive because he believed in the man and the mission more than the money. He poured his fortune into a grand dream of transmitting power wirelessly through the air. And when the funding collapsed, the half-built tower was torn down for scrap. His greatest inventions were credited to other men. He grew stranger and more solitary as the years went on, And in 1943, he died alone, in debt, in a New York hotel room. His closest companions, the pigeons he fed in the park. Today, his name is a unit of scientific measurement, and it is on one of the most famous companies on Earth. The world caught up to him. Decades after, it let him die poor. The lesson for you: doing something world-changing does not guarantee that the world will thank you, or pay you, or even remember it was yours. Tesla's genius was real, whether or not the credit followed. Do the work because it's true and it's yours, and don't measure it by who claps. He was a bright but coasting university student, not especially driven, when his body began to fail. He'd trip, drop things, slur his words. At 21, he was diagnosed with a motor neuron disease that would slowly paralyze him, and the doctors told him he had about 2 years left. Imagine being 21 and handed that. He fell into despair at first. Why study? Why do anything? But the 2 years passed, and he was still alive. And in that strange borrowed time, something in him decided that as long as he was still here, he would do the deepest thinking a human being can do. His body kept shutting down. First a cane, then a wheelchair, then the loss of his hands, and finally his voice, replaced by a computer he operated with a single cheek muscle, one agonizing word at a time. And, with that failing body, he reached further into the universe than almost anyone in history. He worked out that black holes, which were supposed to swallow everything forever, actually glow and leak and die. He wrote a book explaining the cosmos that sold millions of copies to people who had never opened a physics book in their lives. The man, given 2 years, lived to 76. He married, raised children, floated in zero gravity, and became the most recognized scientist on the planet, a mind that soared precisely as far as his body could not. He said that, however bad life may seem, where there is life, there is hope. None. The lesson for you: a diagnosis, a limit, a body, or a circumstance that fails you. None of it can touch the one territory that was always yours, which is what you choose to do with the time you actually get. He was handed 2 years and refused to spend them waiting to die. He spent them thinking, what will you do with yours? As a boy, he was a troublemaker, headed nowhere. Someone pointed him at a running track, and it turned out he could fly, fast enough to run in the 1936 Olympics as a teenager. Then came the war. He became an airman, and in 1943 his bomber went down in the Pacific. He survived the crash. Then he survived 47 days on a raft, starving, sun-scorched, circled by sharks, strafed by an enemy plane, watching one of the other men die beside him. And when he was finally picked up, it was by the enemy. He spent more than 2 years in prison camps, where a particularly cruel guard singled him out. A former Olympian was a prize, and beat him, humiliated him, and tried, every single day, to break his spirit specifically. He walked out of that camp alive when the war ended. He had won. He had survived everything they threw at him. But he brought the war home inside him. The nightmares wouldn't stop. He drank to drown them. He became consumed by a single fantasy, to go back to Japan and kill the guard who had tortured him. The man the enemy couldn't break was being broken, slowly, by his own hatred. His marriage was collapsing. He was drowning on dry land. And then he made the hardest choice in this entire video. He let the hatred go. He forgave them, all of them, even the guard he had dreamed of killing. He said afterward that the moment he forgave, the nightmares stopped. He lived to 97, and decades after the war, he returned to Japan as an old man carrying an Olympic torch past the very place he had been imprisoned, and tried to meet his old tormentors, to tell them, in person, that he forgave them. The lesson for you, and the reason I saved him for last: the sea couldn't kill him, and the camp couldn't break him, but hatred nearly did what the enemy could not. Revenge felt like strength. It was the thing dragging him under. Forgiveness was not letting them win. Forgiveness was how he finally got free. 7 people the world wrote off. A man who lost election after election. A painter who died certain he had failed. A mechanic whose life's work was bombed and buried and shaken to rubble. A scientist forced to his knees and left blind. A genius who died alone and penniless. A young man handed a death sentence at 21. And an airman the sea and the enemy couldn't finish, who was almost undone by his own need for revenge. Every one of them was declared done. And every one of them refused to stay down. That's the whole idea behind this channel. The best revenge isn't vengeance, it's success. It's a life built so well and so fully that the thing meant to end you becomes just the part of the story where it got hard. Whatever has written you off right now, it has been wrong before, about better people than it knows. Take one more step today. Don't stay down, because being down is not the same as being done. Just down, not done. Subscribe to Just Down, Not Done. New comeback stories every week, and I'll see you in the next one.